care about meta. They say, hey, we have a good Nidalee player. We're going to put Luo Yan on Nidalee.
Yeah,
now, I want to see, do LNG just go with the Yuumi?
I wouldn't be surprised. They've got Duan there, who's played it in the past. We've got an Ezreal. But they're not going to lend towards that one straight away. Going for this on. Volibear has been forgotten about, apparently.
Yep, neither team caring about it. And we need to remember, for the side of Vici, this set is still a bit of a flex pick. Obviously not going to go towards the jungle since we have the Nidalee, but could go either top or mid. We've seen it played a lot mid here in the LPL once again. And iBoy showing, hey, you know, I have the confidence in playing this Ashe. And we've seen Ashe work very well in the LPL because it just gives you so many options to play out the mid game. A
lot of ways to make things happen, which is maybe what we need for these two teams when it comes around these mid games. But Vici now moving towards the second ban phase here.
And going from the first phase of draft, we can see that LNG have set up a very clear identity, right? They want to go for this more late game 5v5 style. They have a big beefy front line in the Ornn. They have good DPS. For Vici, their comp can still pivot in different ways, but I'd say thus far it is very much a pick comp. You have the Enchanted Crystal Arrow coming out from Ashe and great single target burst coming out from the Nidalee. Yeah,
I mean, if you land that Crystal Arrow, Nidalee can get a max range spear. Somebody is gonna die. But the Twisted Fate has been banned away here by Vici Gaming, trying to stop Maple from snowballing anything around the mid game. It's going to be followed up with a Bard ban against Duan.
Yeah, and it's confusing to know where Vici will want to go on 4 because, right, that set is a triple flex. I'm not quite sure if Zika or Cube still do play it, but of course you would expect Cube to since it's such a big meta pick in spring.
So it's important to mention as well, Volibear has made it all the way through the bans. Against an Ornn, Volibear top does great. That is the standard Volibear that we've seen in the LPL at least. But there's plenty of other options as well, and the Yuumi made it through the bans as well. So we could see Light and Duan on this Ezreal Yuumi combo.
And instead, just wanting to go towards this Kayle. And once again, Vici are setting up for a very weird comp that has a lot of different elements. We now have late game split push in there as well. Obviously, you could team fight, but you have this jungle Nidalee coming out, which plays through tempo, and then Ashe, which is a lot more known for mid game and pick potential. Kind of reminiscent of Game 1, Munchables.
Yeah, a little bit all over the place, I think is the phrase. As Zoe going to come on through, we could have Team Rocket locked on in here with a GOAT in the top lane as well.
I think you just do it. You just lock it in. And we were talking about amazing comps that can kind of do everything before the match. And to me, this is almost as good of a comp as you can get, right? Ezreal Yuumi with Ornn in the top side, Graves in the jungle. And it feels like any control mage mid can do the job.
Well, you're not going to get a Yuumi. You're going to get a Nautilus instead, as I guess LNG deciding they need a little bit more hard engage, which I can get behind.
Yeah, it makes sense, right? They should feel very comfortable in the 5v5s regardless if they can get on the carries of Vici.
Well, we'll have to see what the answer is in this bottom lane. So it looks like the set is going to be a jungle set coming on. No, it's not, sorry.
Yeah.
Mid lane set. We've got the Nidalee there. Although it could be Middley. I'm just saying, it used to be a thing many, many years ago.
Season 3, Season 4, those are the days. But ultimately, I like what LNG have put together, right? We have elements of poke, we have strong front to back team fighting, we have a great front line, we have engage. Like, everything is there for LNG. If you want to win in the LPL, this is a sort of comp you draft. On Vici, though, set's going to neutralize the mid game, the mid lane. You have scaling in top side, and you have this very aggressive bot lane at level 6. So we at least feel that Vici want to play around the bot side, but after that, I'd say the identity isn't so clear-cut.
Well, we've had this battle of brains between our coaches. You see Coma and Stake there. They've battled many times over the years. And Stake basically saying, look, I believe in the meta. I believe in what is normal in League of Legends right now. And Coma going, sod your meta. I'm going in a completely different direction.
Also very interesting talking about the coach dynamic where every time we've seen the battles look very indifferent towards each other. They just kind of get it done with and get out of there, not putting much stock in that. But you're right, Coma.
The exception to that actually was Coma and Mata. We saw Mata bowing very deeply to Coma when they were bowing to one another, whereas Coma just like clearly didn't care.
Yeah. Oh, Coma, the most decorated coach in history.
Yeah.
Looking down on everyone else is just ants.
And then drafting this, which, well, I mean, I could be wrong. I'm mocking the draft, but ultimately, I'm excited to see what they could do with this one, and I'm excited to be enlightened on how this one works as we head into game number 3 on Summoner's Rift here. Vici with all sorts available to them, and LNG sticking to the meta.
Yep. how Vici play out this game is going to be really interesting because they also will have tempo coming out from the jungle position, right? In Italy is someone who clears camps very fast. Obviously, Graves does as well, so it will be interesting to keep track of that, but we don't expect to see too much action around the top side. In Italy, 4 ganks is very setup dependent. Luckily for you, especially at 6, you have a ton of hard CC in your bot lane.
Yeah, that Leona... I mean, if there's one support that is good at all-inning and setting up for a jungle gank, it's Leona, right? So Hung, a lot of pressure on him in the early game.
And one thing I always like to talk about with comps when their identity isn't so clear, you do also always have the option of just snowballing, right? And Italy is a very snowbally champion, as well as this bot lane, which can just start moving around the map, right? At level 6, you recall, you walk mid, you throw down that arrow onto the Zoe, you kill the Zoe, you can get some plates on that turret, go back to your lane, rinse and repeat, and just start building up this huge gold advantage.
Kind of a similar thing with what we're expecting to see from like a set in the mid lane, right? Is if you can get ahead on this, it is very snowbally because you can become so difficult to deal with so quickly. You basically become invincible during those mid-game fights if you've got a bit of a gold lead. So I'm curious how Zeke is going to play this one out because it's so dramatically different to his usual style. Bit of a trade in the bottom lane, but you don't expect too much of an all-in.
Vici coming out ahead, and actually, we've seen Vici's bot lane win in the 2v2 every single game so far, even in lanes that you wouldn't assume they should, right? We saw last game LNG having the Kalista Thresh. LNG actually getting Kalista both games and losing pretty hard in the bottom lane.
Yeah, now moving over to the Ezreal pick instead for Light.
Also,
Phase Rush set in the mid lane.
Yeah, which, you know, Phase Rush set is pretty normal, but the interesting thing is the fact that he's not secondary.
Oh! Zenith play from Hung there. Very nicely done to get all the way back, but wasn't level 2 yet. I thought that was on the level 2 spike, but unfortunately can't really follow up on it.
Still just interesting that Vici's bot lane is so comfortable going for all of these aggressive trades, not at all scared of any potential shenanigans coming out from LNG. I guess they do have a Graves, so...
The funny thing about that trade to me, honestly, was that Hung goes all the way in onto Light in the brush, and then everyone else in the lane just like pretends nothing happened. Nobody's even auto-attacking each other. Everyone just resets again.
But going back to the set mid, just interesting that he doesn't secondary inspiration and go for the Hextech Flash, right? Instead going into the Resolve tree, showing that he wants more defensive runes to deal with this Zoe.
Yeah, to be able to tank it through in the mid lane, to be able to
see him go second win, so going to be able to pair with this passive well, just back off and regen and annoy the hell out of you.
It means that he can take these aggressive trades as well, right, in the mid lane. Because ultimately, Maple is going to chunk you every time you try and get the CS, so it's important to have that regen for the set. As we see Lien doing niddly things, right, clearing away the enemy jungle, maybe looking for a play on the bot side. Leona can dive from level 3.
And LNG's bot lane is only level 2.
Hung's going in for this one, straight onto Duan. He walks away, Ignite is taken away, but one more auto from Lien is what it takes.
Oh.
Beautifully done by Vici.
Yeah, that was great. That initial spear really being the thing that kind of brought it all together because we saw Duan actually almost survived. Had Duan been able to survive, Maple come in there, could have been a completely different story for Vici.
Very nicely done from Vici, and this is what we wanted to see, right? A bit more proactivity out of them. Do you see Flandre getting a nice little trade onto Cube? I mean, level 3 on and beyond is he's always going to do well in the trades.
Exactly. We don't expect to see Kale become a real threat until later levels. The good thing is, right, you're just going to be able to safely farm. It's not too big of a deal, but Cube actually is struggling a bit in this laning phase, already behind about 15 CS. But also nice for Vici kind of moving back that we looked at this comp and said, hey, the only potential windows are around bot side, and that they're playing around those windows, and they are trying to snowball this game forward.
And let's just bear in mind, if LNG fall too far behind in that bottom lane, it only gets worse. Like, the level 6 spike out of an Ashe Leona bottom lane, they don't need a jungler at that point. They're just going to one-shot you.
Exactly. So, great from Vici already setting up that potential play later on for success. And, you know, even as the game goes longer, and we've set up that LNG's comp does have a more holistic identity in the late game, Vici do still have a Kale, which is a champion that off of your mistakes can single-handedly take over a game, and we've seen it so many times here in the LPL.
We see it all the time. These Kales just get on top of things, and it's often these mid-game fights that we see. It's the same with the Cassin, right, where it's not meant to be strong in the mid-game, but if they just pick up a couple of killing blows, suddenly everything is thrown out the window.
we actually saw this happen to LNG, the game where they had the Ocean Soul. They were up against OMG's Kale, and that's how OMG ended up coming back and winning that game.
You can see how tanky Zika is already starting to get. No damage able to come out from Maple here. Lian, in the meantime, going to start off on this bottom side to get the first dragon of the game.
This is why Set was always a good mid laner in Spring, and why I would have loved to see more of it, because against a lot of control mages, you could just completely ignore them. You completely ignore them, you throw your Haymaker at the wave, you clear the wave, you walk and you support one side of the map.
I mean, it's a similar concept to like the Fiddlesticks mid, right?
Exactly.
You just walk up, you're going, I'm going to clear this wave. There's nothing you can do about it. All right, I'm going somewhere else on the map. See you later.
Set's even a step further in the sense that bruisers are just so strong in the early game 2v2s.
Hang on, Cube's in trouble here. The knock-up. Going to go wide as Cube gets the flash to safety. It's going to be an important summoner, though. So the question will be, does XX come back here?
Also interesting that Flandre could have looked to hold the lane there a bit longer, but instead going for that W and kind of thinning it out a bit. I guess it's still going to push into him, so I guess thinning it out was the right call, and he's going to be able to hold it in that position a bit longer.
Yeah, nicely done from him to control the wave for himself. Zika, as you rightly say, just going to be clearing this wave. Already with the Bami Cinder there, so can quite happily just deal with that one. Sleepy Trouble Bubble, though. He's tanky, he's not invincible.
He's invincible, March.
He's invincible, I take it back. I was starting to say it before the Paddle Star hit, and then it tickled him slightly, and I lost faith that he's ever going to die this game.
And we're just seeing Vici execute on this plan where their bot lane is constantly pushing, Lilian is constantly counter-jungling the enemy bot side, as Zika can just ignore Maple and hover over to make sure Lilian can do it safely.
Cube has found himself a good little trade there in the top side. Lilian continuing to give XX a hard time here. Face checks into the brush, but knows he's safe because Hunk is just nearby as well. Lilian is out of mana, though, so you expect him to have to back away from this.
Yeah, and even though he has been counter-jungling XX quite well, they are still even in CS. Flandre backing and recalling, so now having all his HP back is able to trade favorably onto Cube. And we see Maple is hovering topside. They would like to punish that kill once again, but that control ward gonna thwart any of XX and Maple's plans.
So, relatively slow start to the game once again for the third time in a row now. But XX wants to change things. We already said the flash is gone for Cube. And he's going to realize he's not in a good spot right now. The slow from the red buff. Going to be a bit of justice coming out, though, to keep Cube safe, and he's fine.
Yep. Overall, I was completely wrong. The control ward not preventing anything when you could just dash over terrain. Still, though, you do get the ultimate out of Cube. And Rift Herald is up now, so LNG can look for this play on the top side, especially with Call of the Forge God coming back up soon.
Do you know, I've just realized something really annoying about the set mid. If you're the Zoe in this matchup, bear in mind, the reason Zoe is good in a lot of matchups is her ability to just clear the wave, right? The ability to just force that wave in. You know how when you're an AD carry and supports block your skill shots so that you can't CS? Well, Set can do that, except he's not a support. He's happy to just soak the damage. He doesn't really care.
Soak some damage. He can throw that Haymaker, get the shield if he wants. Can even just walk away, ignore you, and heal back up with this passive.
Just deny CS from Maple. You can see that in the CS numbers. He's actually ever so slightly ahead there. Obviously not a significant lead, but the fact that there's a tank matching CS of a mage is...
Lilian, actually, not being in the best place, but Hong is here and Dwan isn't. Oh,
that's a lot of damage from a Javelin right now. That's a Javelin. None of this Javelin stuff.
Wait,
that's a Javelin right there.
Is a Javelin and a Spear the same thing?
A Javelin is essentially a throwing spear. A spear is not something you typically throw. It's a melee weapon. A Javelin is a throwing weapon.
Holy cow, my whole life feels like a lie. I feel like I don't know anything except League of Legends.
Nidalee's Q is called Javelin Toss. Just for context.
I'm just saying, you don't need to know ability names to be a coach. Actually, most players don't know ability names.
That's true. In fact, ability names, I feel, in that environment are probably a negative.
I wonder if even the riders who make the champions remember the ability names of said champions.
I guarantee they do. I bet that's something that they care about a lot, because there are a lot of horrendous ability names that are pretty cool, I guess, but when you have to say them really quick in a team fight, suck.
What's a horrendous ability name? Name one. I'm putting you on the spot.
Oh, God.
You made the statement. You got to stand by it.
Like, Shield of Durand, that's actually a taunt. It's not a shield at all.
That's true. That one just...
It used to be called Icon of Durand, whatever that means. I'm guessing Durand is like a region in the lore or something.
If you just said that and I was like a casual listener, I would have no idea what that ability does.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I'm like unsure about as a caster is whether or not you should commit to ability names like that. Because Galio, like, realistically, if he's flashing in and going for a taunt, probably just call it a taunt, right?
I agree. I think it's just much simpler, but you know, looking at the map, look at Vici's vision. Look at all their control wards just kind of lined up across LNG's jungle. Anything XX does, Vici are going to know about it. And once again, Vici are just finding these advantages off laning phase and Luoyan abusing his pryos in mid and bot and just constantly counter-jungling XX. So showing us this way this comp was meant to be played.
And also showing us the reason that LNG felt the need to ban this Nidalee 2 games running in this series. Luoyan gets that pick for himself. Now might just be able to finish off a Rift Herald as well before it gets the charge on the tower. Looks like it will get the charge on.
Oh!
No, it doesn't! They deny it. Beautifully done by Vici.
Yeah, LNG getting nothing, and also kind of happenstance that XX ulted. I don't think he would have gotten hit by the Enchanted Crystal Arrow anyway, but anything was possible, and Vici using their aggressive tools to find the leads, and man, FLICKR not having a good time. He is up 20 CS, but
I mean, ultimately, that's how this matchup goes. Once you're beyond that level 6 mark and Cube has a bit more range damage, he can start to win out these trades. There's no follow-up from the Call of the Forge God, so Cube's going to be completely fine. He's got a Vamp Scepter as well, so he's going to be happy to just win out. Now he's got somewhat of a ranged matchup.
And we've really seen XX be a non-factor in these games. Sure, he went for the Herald when they were able to blow that ultimate.
Hang on, we've got a 1v1. Zika just soaks the Trouble Bubble, does not care. Now Luoyan wants Flandre in the top lane as well. The Javelin flashed away from, nicely done there by Flandre. It means he'll survive.
Feels like if anyone out there wants to know how to play Nidalee, Luoyan is giving us a masterclass on how to just completely deny the enemy jungle and take over a game. And we've only had one kill. But Vici just feel like they're so firmly in control of this game.
And this feels like a macro win, right, for Vici? Or at least, I mean, it's not a win yet. Let's just hold our horses for a second here. They do have a gold lead. They've got 2 Drakes. But importantly, all of these advantages have been from them.
Exactly. I feel like a macro win is a good way to put it, right? Even if the game isn't over yet, at least in terms of macro, they have been doing well. And especially when they came in with this draft, and we say it so many times that simple and easier to execute is better here in the LPL. Teams like Suning the other day and Vici today saying, no, we can draft these harder to play comps, show you how it's done, execute on these windows, find these advantages, and come out ahead.
And often this kind of conversation comes down to player comfort as well.
Yes.
Clearly, Luoyan is very comfortable right now on the Nidalee. It shows. And this could net Vici some really good advantages coming into the mid game here. But bear in mind, it's going to be Mountain Drakes, so when it comes to the Nidalee's damage, if you could stack a few Mountain Drakes, it's really going to fall off.
Oh, we see them going for the same play, but obviously now Dwan is a lot tankier.
Oh my days. Now the arrow is all. Hung's going to dive onto Dwan. There's nothing he can do, and Luoyan has found light as well. Forces the flash out of this one, pounces on through, and gets himself a double kill on the Cougar. Now Maple has arrived, but there's still 3 members strong. They can go for this fight. iBoy in trouble here, has the flash and gets himself over the wall. Maple trying to finish it, collateral damage, just ain't enough. And there's a heal from Luoyan as well.
I just want to say, Luoyan makes Nidalee's Q look like a point-and-click ability. Doesn't look like he's been missing any spears this game. And I said, okay, this Nautilus is way too tanky now. They pull off the dive so well, end up with 2 kills, and then a lot of good mechanical play gets them out, so LNG pick up nothing.
It's starting to get scary for LNG, honestly, because the way that these fights are going, not even just in the numbers advantage, just in the mechanics coming out from Vici, they're looking on form.
Well, remember, the premise we came into this game was, wow, LNG's team fight looks a lot more coherent. In the 5v5s, they're going to be scary. We've not had a 5v5, and we might never see a 5v5 this game. We might just see Cube continuing to punish in the side lane and Vici using Luoyan's tempo advantage to roam around the map and secure objectives himself.
Yeah, I mean, Luoyan would love to never see a 5v5. Nidalee, not really a team fight pick, right? But ultimately, if he can just do this all game, just power clear camps, he's over the moon.
And we see here, hitting a spear does half of Light's damage. Good Enchanted Crystal Arrow. I'm just surprised how much damage even Vici's bot lane duo has just in themselves. Hits another one, jumps in, secures his kill onto Light.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about the level 6 power spike for this bottom lane. Now Call of the Forge God onto Cube, flashes away from the knockup. Maple wants to answer for this one. Sleepy Trouble Bubble would lock him down, and XX has arrived as well. I think this might just be the end of the KO, but he's going to try and fight it out anyway. Knockup is there. And in the end, he goes down. But at what cost? Because Vici just charged down the mid lane.
Yeah, and LNG have no room to answer. It looks like they might even just ignore this and start up the Herald anyway. I guess there is really nothing else they can do, and you can already see that Vici aren't opting into pushing for an inhib.
But they are going to be able to, I think Leon should be able to finish this tower on the next minion wave. In the meantime, iBoy moves to the bottom lane.
Exactly, so they're going to be able to get another turret in bot side, and LNG probably just going to have to drop this Herald top and secure their first turret.
That is insane. This is going to be one tower in the top lane in favor of LNG for 3 towers for Vici in a single swing. It looks like they didn't actually manage to finish off the mid lane tier 2.
They're not even going to get the top turret, they're just resetting.
This is rough for LNG. We talked about a macro win. If that ain't a macro win right there, I don't know what is.
Also, as we've seen with a lot of IG games, if you're winning like 5,000 or 6,000 gold, it doesn't matter if your comp is meant to teamfight or not. You will still win teamfights based off item advantages.
That is very, very true. That's something we see time and time again in League of Legends. Speaking of teamfights, though, Dragon's up in 10 seconds, and it looks like LNG are the ones to set up in position.
We do see Cube roaming over, though, so this does look like a fight that Vici want to take. He does not have his ultimate, though. Everyone else's ultimates are up. No Call of the Forge God either, though.
So both top laners' ultimates on cooldown here, but Flandre's will be coming up very shortly, so if the fight is delayed, it could still come on through. We'll just have a smite fight on our hands. Good arrow through, though. But it's not going to be enough as Hung, the first one to go down. In comes Zika onto the backline, stalling both carries while the rest of his team just cleans everything up. There's nothing anyone from LNG can do, and that is an easy fight win for Vici.
Overall, though, it does end up being a 2 for 3. We did see how LNG's comp could come out ahead if it was even, but LNG so far ahead, Lilian even just able to jump in by himself, 5-0-1 on this Nidalee.
And honestly, Zika MVP of that fight just jumps straight onto the backline, denies both carries there. Trouble bubble though, Zika can block the damage if there's any follow-up here. And this fight is going on. We're going the whole way on this one, Lian. Just goes wide on the spear though. Back onto the Dragon once more. iBoy's good at DPSing this one down. The smite should come on through as Flandre's caught now. Smite just about gets it away from the paddle star. Flandre walks away.
Still, so now Vici are on solo point, and sure, these fights might be close for now. And this is Vici with the 5K gold lead, but this game's not going to get any easier for LNG, right? Vici are going to just be able to continue and snowball this game further ahead. And here we see Dwan go for the engage. iBoy kind of counter-engaging, and they pick off Hung right away. Good for LNG, but like you said, Zika goes straight to the backline, but we see Luoyan is just so far ahead, he's able to jump in and pretty much delete 2 members out from LNG and just keeps going forward with this Nidalee.
And just look at the scoreboard right now, Lyric. Lian is 5-0-1 on Nidalee. If you were wondering why on earth LNG were banning this Nidalee in Game 1 and Game 2, this is why Lian is tearing them apart.
This also goes back to pre-summer split where a lot of people were massively hyping Vici for this Luoyan pickup. And Luoyan right now is showing us why, that he has these games that he can single-handedly take over if the draft suits him, if resources are put into him. And he's just playing phenomenally mechanically at this point.
If he's given the tools, he can very much take over these games. And you can look at the CS lead alone, even when you don't include the kills. He's 40 CS up. And bear in mind, Graves is a jungler that is great in a farming matchup, right? He's good at power farming, but it's not working out for him in this game because Lian has just been all over everything. And let's bear in mind, when we get to the mid game, that's when we talk about Ezreal really spiking on those 2 items. He's going to be hitting 2 items about the same time as iBoy.
Yeah, it's going to be a window for LNG to come back, and they're really going to need to hope for another 5v5 fight. Ultimately, it feels like it's going to be up to how much more gold and items can Vici snowball by that point, and is Lilian hitting those spheres like we've seen him do time and time again?
Also, a lot of this is going to be like, let's just bear in mind this lead for the side of LNG has had basically nothing to do with Cube, and he is a win condition in of himself, just alone. Battlestar's going to go wide. Nice ult there from iBoy to keep Lian safe, protecting this bounty. And iBoy, as a reward, gets the Mega Chicken for himself.
Yep, just a small skirmish, but overall things going to be a bit even.
And we have to just revisit the point about the scoreboard here. Cube hasn't had to do anything.
I know.
He's on Kale. This is the dream. He's just farming in a side lane.
He's died twice, but it doesn't matter at all. He's getting to play League of Legends. He showed up in the one fight where it really mattered. And now he's at a point where no one can deal with him 1v1 on the side of LNG. This is the Kale dream.
This is just the perfect situation for Cube. He could do whatever he wants off the side lane. And as you rightly say, nobody can do anything about it. Nobody can actually 1v1 him at this point.
And let's highlight how good Vici's vision has been this game. Also having that hawk shot coming out from iBoy, but their warding has been phenomenal, and it gives Cube that safety to push up to the tier 2 on LNG side of the map and not feel any pressure at all.
So now the next objective is either going to be this Baron that is available on the map, but you expect really Vici just to be waiting for this next mountain trade. It's up in a minute and a half, although Hung isn't waiting for anything. He wanted to weigh in there, but won't find the engage for himself. FLICKR pulled back away from his team right here. He is tanky though. He's going to take a lot of damage, and I don't think Vici are willing to commit.
Yeah, ultimately, obviously, Nidalee, not really a DPS champion, also missing those spears. Doesn't feel like it would have made too much of a difference, but putting some pressure down, Zika not going to have his ultimate just for a little while. It is about 60 seconds right now on the cooldown, so we'll come up the same time as Dragon, and that's all Vici needs.
So we mentioned the 2-item spike on Ezreal as well here. Light hit that point. Well, once he stacked this Mura mana, which should be in the next couple of minutes here, he will have hit that point. On the other side of the board, iBoy, he spikes really well off of 2 items as well. They're more expensive items, but he's hit them at the same time, which is just such a catastrophic lead for him in that bottom lane. And when it comes to this Dragon fight, his Ashe is officially online.
Exactly, and we're also at a point where Hung and Zika are just going to be able to take up so much damage. That Stone Plate for Hung going to do so well.
So Zika here to try and zone everybody away. Is Dragon spawning in 20 seconds time. Duan happy to tank the spear for the rest of his team. And what do LNG do here? Because they obviously can't just forfeit the Dragon.
I mean, they just need to engage, right? You need to go for the play, come with Call of the Forge God, throw it in, kite back, make sure none of them can get on your carries, because you do still have a range advantage despite the fact that iBoy has...
Oh, arrow onto Duan. This is going to be him going down immediately in this fight. And there's a follow-up kill onto XX. Just gets away with his life, though, over the wall. And FLICKR now arriving. Light is there to try and force out these carries, but Lian is a carry in of himself, and he's jumped over the wall. Zika's found a flank as well as Hung goes back in once again. They can't quite get onto Light as he jumps over the wall. They're still going to win out this fight. Overall, XX goes down. Lian chunked out, and Light maybe can make something happen, because these health bars are low. He's pretty low on mana himself. FLICKR is here to try and protect the Ezreal. I don't know why we're looking at Maple right now. And they're going to go straight onto the Dragon.
Ultimately, you said, what do LNG have to do? And they didn't even get time to figure it out with that Enchanted Crystal Arrow coming out. And 2 beautiful flanks coming out from Zika, initially to start out the fight, and then waiting in the wings of the red buff to go back onto XX. And now we have a giant shield. That poke going to mean a bit less. And Vici going to be able to keep going forward with now a 7k gold lead.
This just went from a difficult game for LNG to nigh on impossible at this point, I would wager, because when your composition relies a lot on poke, Mansol's going to ruin that.
And it shouldn't be that easy for Lian to hit these spears, as we keep seeing him miss, but he is still hitting like however much percent, and it's still doing about half of your HP. But here I thought Zika played it so well, got that initial flank, and then here waited in the wings once again, gets onto XX, and we see Cube trying to deal with Maple in the front, but still getting whittled down, and Zika just doing a great job at playing out this fight. And LeBlanc can now set 2 very different champions and styles, and Zika executing so well.
And, you know, Zika just able to bully people out of the fights, because you can't focus on the set, but you also can't ignore the set. So Zika is able to just run around, give Maple and Light a hard time, and keep them away from his carries.
I do want to say for the side of LNG, though, both fights have ended up being extremely close. LNG gets the members of Vici down to pretty much 20% health bars, and kiting out these fights is going to be hard when they have the Enchanted Crystal Arrow as well as the Leona ultimate coming out, but if you can get that engage out, everything else on the side of Vici is conditional.
That's true, if they can find something. Also, let's bear in mind, I'm going to stop saying bear in mind, Lyric. Call it out if you hear it. Twitch chat, tell me off. But we do have to look at the fact that Maple is on Zoe, right? A trouble bubble that hits a prime carry can set up the game for a win here.
But they're losing Baron.
I don't think it's gonna. I don't think there's any trouble bubbles coming. I don't think even a miraculous trouble bubble can
we
save
saw
the
a
day
trouble
now.
bubble, but it's just kind of laying there.
That bubble is in trouble, honestly.
Now, ultimately, Vici are just going to walk up as 5. I guess they could 1-4, right? They have the Kale on one side, but it's better to not give LNG any opportunity to engage on you 5v4. Just group up as 5, throw the Nidalee spear, and take turrets.
FLICKR's given up hope on this game. He's just going to be pushing in the bottom lane right now. He knew that they could contest Baron. Hung takes a good chunk there, but FLICKR's like, look, I'm going to go for a tier 1.
You know, being as efficient with his time as possible. Realistically, if he was here, can he stop this push? No. So, you know, get some gold in your pocket back, buy an item. The game might be over by then, but...
You are ultimately trading a tier 1 for an inhibitor, though. I don't know if that's worth it. Maybe it is, because Lien's gone down, and they're just going to win 4v5. Now in comes Flandre. Knock up onto iBoy is massive. There's not really much follow-up available. Cube has arrived as well, so this is going to be 4v5 at this point in the game. Duan desperately trying to survive, but it's all about Zika on the backline. The set is indestructible, and he's taking names and finishing these health bars. Triple for Zika on the tank as Cube cleans up the rest.
That was as good of a fight as you could hope for from the side of LNG, but Cube and Zika doing so much work. Vici are going to get this win.
This is going to be game here and Vici. We mentioned the Summer team. We mentioned how their style wasn't in fashion. They go, I don't care if it's fashionable. Do you know how fashion's made? By people making statements like this. The Nidalee comes off through. Hung tanking up the tower here. Will finally go down, but I think this Nexus should fall. iBoy there to finish it off. In fact, they're going to look for extra kills here. 11-5, and Vici with a macro win.
Yeah, Vici, you said falling out of fashion, just getting rid of Forge and Ike's kind of sadly, bringing in Luyen and Zika, but it turns out this was the change they needed to at least get some momentum.